Somewhere along the line,
Unity of purpose, not uniformity of views. Unity, even the Sahaba did not agree on everything. Unity requires sacrifice. We're willing to do anything about unity. We're willing to talk about it, write articles about it, to scream about it, but we're not willing to sacrifice for it. Every single time you see disunity, someone is benefiting from it, from the Muslim community. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sunnah is to give victory to those who are united. And if you are disunited, you will be defeated. We will boycott for Palestine. We will write letters for Palestine. We will donate for Palestine. We will make dua for Palestine. We will do everything except one thing. We refuse to unite.
in the face of great tragedy, division, and sadness, the great Muslim poet Allama Muhammad Iqbal once wrote, "Manfiyat ek hai is kaun ki, nuksan bhi ek hi sabka nabi, deen bhi, iman bhi ek, haram-e-pak bhi, Allah bhi, Quran bhi ek, kuch badi baat hoti, hote jo Musalman bhi ek." The well-being of this ummah is one. Its harm is one. Our Prophet ﷺ is one. Our deen is one. Our faith is one. Our haramain is one. Our Allah is one. Our Quran is one. Would it really have been such a big deal if the Muslims were also one? Many of us grew up hearing marvelous stories of unity from our history. The unwavering justice of the stories of the Battle of Badr, the intellectual heights in the Islamic Golden Age, the stories of Al-Andalus, the legacies of greats like Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, Muhammad bin Qasim, Tariq ibn Ziyad, Fatih Sultan Mehmed, King Faisal, and Sultan Abdul Hamid. But these weren't just nostalgic tales. They were stories of strength, of people united by purpose, conviction, and a deep sense of togetherness. And yet, we look around today and the division is hard to ignore. From our helplessness in the face of global injustices in Gaza, Kashmir, and Sudan, to the divisions right here at our doorsteps. Masajid that refuse to work together, Muslim organizations competing instead of collaborating, and especially among students on campus, arguments about what sheikh to follow, who's on the haqq, quote unquote, and who's next to be cancelled this week. Somewhere along the line, the unity we speak out about so lovingly has begun to feel like a distant memory. So the question is, what happened to that call to be one united ummah? Today we're joined by someone who has spent years trying to answer that question, not just through theory but through action, who has been known as someone who unites. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Dr. Wajid Akhter, and welcome to the Thinking Youth.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for having me on here.
Thank you. Dr. Wajid, we want to start off by asking, what does unity really even mean? I mean, we hear the word unity thrown around, but in your view, what does that mean for us Muslims? Is it just about agreeing with one another, or is there something at a deeper level?
Jazakallah khairan. This is a very important question because it's been so long since we've seen unity. It's been so long since we've actually experienced or tasted it that you actually have many people in the Muslim world, intellectuals, scholars even, who will say things like, we've never been united. We can never be united. And they seem to misunderstand a fundamental thing, that there is an obligation for Muslims to pray. And because there is an obligation for Muslims to pray, we've established the mosques. There is an obligation on Muslims to eat halal food. And because of that, we established halal butchers and halal restaurants. There's an obligation on us to go on Umrah or do Hajj if we can afford it. So we've established the infrastructure from whether it's the airlines and the airports to the travel agents to go and perform that obligation if we are qualified for it. Well, there's an obligation on us to unite, but we have not done anything for it. And that's because we're not willing to sacrifice for it. I'll tell you one story which illustrates what unity means, because people think unity means uniformity.
Yeah, everyone just does the same.
We do the same thing. Yeah, and they say, I'm rebelling against that. Wallahi, it doesn't mean that. Unity of purpose, not uniformity of views. Unity, even the Sahaba did not agree on everything, but they were united. So there's a story of a man called Baysungar. Baysungar was the leader of the Dagestani people in over 100 years ago. Dagestan and Chechnya are next to each other. So like any two countries next to each other, they don't always get along. Pakistan, Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. And over 100 years ago, Dagestan was rebelling against Russia, against the colonizers, and Chechnya was quiet. Just like 20, 30 years ago, Chechnya was rebelling against Russia, and Dagestan was quiet. So Baysungur was leading the Dagestanis, and this man had one eye, one arm, and one leg. He had lost all of them in battle.
Wow.
Eventually, the Russians caught him. And when the Russians caught him, they took him to Chechnya to kill him, to execute him in Chechnya. So they put him on a chair with a noose around his neck. The Chechens were all there. And then they played their master card. They told the Chechens, kick the chair. Why? Because if the Chechens killed the leader of the Dagestanis, then it would be a blood feud that would continue for generations. So they told him to kick the chair, but the Chechens are Muslims. None of them moved. They told him again, kick the chair. None of them moved. Now the Russians took out their machine guns, pointed at the Chechens and said, kick the chair or we'll kill you. What did Baysungur do? He held up his one arm to stop them, and he used his one leg to kick his own chair. Because he wanted to keep the Muslims united. Unity requires sacrifice. We're willing to do anything about unity. We're willing to talk about it. We're willing to write articles about it. We're willing to scream about it. But we're not willing to sacrifice for it. Unity means sacrificing. It means putting myself behind somebody else. It means putting somebody else's cause before me. Putting Gaza before my own cause. Putting somebody else's comfort before my own. It means thinking about the future rather than the present. That's what unity means, and that's what we're not willing to do, which is why we've not tasted it. And as there's a saying about history, they said you don't hate history, you just hate the way it was taught to you.
Wow.
So it's the same with unity. You don't dislike unity, you just haven't seen it yet.
SubhanAllah, I think, because that captures, that's a beautiful story, because it makes you realize that those individuals, there have been individuals in our ummah who have placed the importance of unity so high, to the peak, arguably in that case's story, rahimahumullah, may Allah bless him, is the most important, right? The end of your life. This is something, and on one hand, so we see that like these stories of as these people who took unity as the most important, significant element of their life and their cause, but on the other hand, we also have this, it feels like division has become the default. Cancel culture, endless fiqh debates, groupish thinking. It feels such a mess. And honestly speaking, in the youth spaces, many of us have caught us on this too. So why do you think it's so easy for Muslims today to split and turn on each other?
Partially, and I'm going to only minimize this part, there's an external factor at play, right? When you go on social media, this is why when I was, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I used to tell people, limit your social media use. Now I tell them, come off it. Come off it completely. Do not be on it as an individual, because there's an algorithm at play which is much more powerful than you are. And if you think that you can outrun the algorithm, then you are mistaken, right? It's like saying, I'm going to take drugs, I'm going to try not to get addicted. It's not going to happen. I hear it all the time. I take drugs or I drink.
It won't be me.
It won't be me. I don't have an addictive personality. Khalas, you've already lost. They've already convinced you that they've got you in their matrix, right? So partly is external factors. So there are entities that are stoking the division, but mostly it's internal. Every single time you see disunity, someone is benefiting from it, from the Muslim community. When you have these debates online, do you think those influencers are not getting likes?
They are.
So what are they learning? Are they learning that, if they did a podcast, if they did a shout out, whatever, I don't know when groups of people get together on the social media is, but whenever, a mess is probably the best word to say, a hot mess, yeah? When you put that together, if they said, let's work together, or let's have a nuanced debate, or I can see your point of view, are they going to get any views? No. They're going to get views if they say, these feminists, they're all crazy feminazis, yeah? Oh, these brothers, they're all crazy. That's what they're going to get views. So we're playing into it. And so we have that everywhere. It's not just social media. In the university space, every single university, anywhere you go in the world, there's no just an Islamic society. You'll have a Bangla SOC, a Pak SOC, an Arab SOC, maybe a North African SOC. Whatever SOC you'll find, the Somali SOC. Why? Because someone somewhere decided, you know what? If we just have an Islamic society, I'll be a small fish in a big pond. I would rather be the king of the pond, make my own little pond, do whatever I
running the
want.
show, yeah.
I want to run the show. In the mosques. So I'm the Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Britain, which is trying to unify the Muslim community of the UK. It's not in anyone's interest for us to succeed. Because if we succeed, then when we turn around and say, guys, we're doing Eid on one day, I say, who the hell are you? I'm not going to listen to you. I don't want to listen to anyone. I want to be my own boss.
Who put you in charge?
Who put you in charge? I don't want a boss. I don't want a leader. I don't want to be accountable to anyone. I want to be me. Every single one of us wants to be a mujtahid and a khalifa on our own. So of course, that's what you get. A bunch of losers who are being attacked by everyone, left, right, and center, fighting each other online. That's what we are.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother Mazen Mukhtar, CEO of Baitulmaal. According to UNESCO, there are about 250 million children around the world who are not in school. This is due to war and poverty and natural disasters and other factors. These children dream of an education, of a brighter tomorrow, of making a difference in their communities. By sponsoring an education kit, you can help these dreams come true. You'll be providing stationery and textbooks, school uniforms, shoes, and much more. Your compassion today can turn into hope for a brighter tomorrow for these children. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And honestly speaking, we see this everywhere. And I'm glad you brought up the masajid, this stuff, because we see that there are so many Muslims in this country. MashaAllah. And in one sense, in many senses, amazing, right? We see phenomenal things going on. But just like how we see in the ISOC example, there's so many Muslims on campus. I mean, many of the top unis here, mashallah, Muslims are thriving into numbers. In organizations, we've not only had numbers of Muslims, but we have numbers in the double digits of organizations. But to speak to that kind of division that you're talking about, how do we get out of that mindset where we see all this division, we see all the groupings, we see the same street might have 3-4 masjids in certain places, all of these kind of things. People look at that, they're frustrated. What is the step to just start maybe thinking bigger?
We need to build a movement for unity. If you ask me, like the other people will say, oh, that's very simple. You know, what's your 30-page strategy? What's your theory of change model? I don't believe in all this nonsense, right? No movement, doesn't start from, the Bolshevik Revolution or the French Revolution. It didn't start by people sitting down and penning together some long 70-step strategy and all these fancy models. It starts with a feeling, right? With a movement for change that we're not going to accept being disunited. Yeah? It should be easier for a Muslim to say, I'm going to drink alcohol on Laylatul Qadr in public than it is for them to say, I want to disunite. And none of them will say that. But the actions do it. We have to work together. Right? And so we have to build that movement for unity. We are obsessed with saviors, not systems. We're a bunch of losers who wait for Salah ad-Din to come, save the day. He saved the day, wallahi, we got Jerusalem. He goes, we lose Jerusalem again, we're back to losers again. And what do? We make dua, oh Allah, send us another Salah ad-Din because we're a bunch of losers, we need another Salah ad-Din to come and save us. Why? Where's the system? We don't build systems, right? Whereas what you see over here, this country, you have, you can have horrific prime ministers who are completely incompetent, trash the economy. The country continues.
System still runs.
You look at America, you look at anywhere, right? You have people who come who can do all sorts of things, but there's a system, a process. We don't have systems, we have processes. So we need to encourage our young people that let's start a movement that we have to be united. Unity, not just unity for the sake of it. Again, people always trying to find excuses. Unity for what? Are we a bunch of communists? We just hold hands. Unity upon Islam. Who's saying that? Unity upon Islam, right? But let's unite together, inshallah, because what we have in common is far more than what we have against each other. And then let's work together and build that unity, one by one, person by person. Because when you do that, they say, saying that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Right? Why? Because the mother teaches the child what their priorities are, what they should focus on. So now our mothers who are rocking the cradle should unite our world, inshallah.
I love how you said that unity doesn't necessarily mean that we're all the same. Because there's a saying that goes that, unity isn't us holding our hands together and singing Kumbaya. unity is you and me are different. You and me, we think different. We look different. Everything is about us conventionally is different, but we're uniting perhaps on a purpose, on a reason, on a cause. So I wanted to kind of talk about, is real unity about everyone thinking the same, or is it something about a shared purpose and a vision? And how do we avoid falling into just blind conformity and stick to kind of unity of purpose, as you mentioned before?
It's definitely not everyone thinking the same, because that's uniformity, right? And no one's calling for that. And Islam is against that. We have differences of opinion, but it is me and you disagreeing, and then once we've had our disagreement, we both follow the leader. That's what unity is. Let me give an example. Moon sighting. Okay, this is a controversial one. People say, don't get involved in fiqh. And I say, listen to this. In the whole of the Western world, we have debates on how we should resolve moon sighting. Should we follow Saudi? Should we follow Morocco? Should we follow our home country? Should we follow local moon sighting? Should we follow calculation? What should we do? And this is a very, very good example. I love this example because we all engage in it, and none of us are able to see what the actual answer is. Not even, unfortunately, our scholars and ulama, for the majority, apart from a few I've seen recently, mashallah, who can see what's the right answer. The right answer is whatever the leader decides. When you have 5 answers that all have pros and cons, you need to have someone who makes a decision, who says, in order for us to be united, otherwise there's no unity. It's just you giving your opinion, I giving my opinion. I might as well be, that means I'm united with the person on the street, right? I'm united with some Eskimo in Alaska. Am I united with them just because he has an opinion, I have an opinion? And I agree that he has a right to an opinion, I have a right to an opinion. There's no unity there. Unity means that we all give our opinion and the leader makes a decision. And in Saudi Arabia, for example, do you think every Saudi agreed that Eid was on Sunday rather than Monday? No. But they've got unified leadership. So even if you 100% believe it should be on Monday, you follow on Sunday because that's what you're supposed to do. There is barakah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always puts barakah in the united decision, whether it's Muslim or non-Muslim. There is an ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَن تَجِدُ لَهُ فِي سُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا, that you will not see in the sunnah of Allah any change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a sunnah, and the sunnah of Allah is to give victory to those who are united. Whether they are Muslim or not, whether they are evil or not, is irrelevant to those who are united. And we've seen this. Muslims were united at Badr, and we were small in number, and we won. And we got disunited for a few seconds at Uhud. We got disunited. Some of us went for the booty, some of us were at the front, and others were in the middle, and we got defeated. And we can see that now with Gaza. What's happening in Gaza, could it happen to even the smallest fishing village in China? Do you think that they could kill even one person in a fishing village in China and get away? No.
Absolutely not.
Why? There's double number of Muslims than there are Chinese. We have more wealth underneath our feet. We have more. We have everything. We have everything but unity. We have everything but unity, and it's the same here, where we have 30 to 50,000 Muslim doctors and healthcare professionals, probably more than that, in this country, and we have the worst healthcare outcomes. We have more Muslims as MPs than any other minority, and we have no political power. We have the most youthful population, and we have the least employment. None of this makes sense unless you realize that because we are disunited. A few of us are succeeding and the rest of us are sinking. A few countries in the Muslim world are doing well and the rest of us are sinking. Because that's what happens when you're disunited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remember this, the sunnah of Allah, and sunnah of Allah does not change. If you are united, you get victory. And if you are disunited, you will be defeated. Very simple. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there's no complexity there. You don't need to have the best strategy, etc., etc. You need to be united, and that's the one thing we refuse to do. We will march for Palestine. We will boycott for Palestine. We will write letters for Palestine. We will donate for Palestine. We will make dua for Palestine. We will do everything except one thing. We refuse to unite. So if you refuse to unite, then you continue to watch your brothers and sisters die every single day and wonder why.
especially with the genocide in Gaza, especially with what we're seeing every single day on our feeds. We scroll through images of pain, just horrible pain, and you can't help but think what we need to do more. And as painful and sad and horrible as obviously the tragedy of the genocide is in Gaza, as well as the pains in Sudan going on right now, in Kashmir and all these areas, I think the one perhaps silver lining that we've seen, at least in the youth spheres, for the first time in a long time, there are many people, many young students, Muslim men and women, who are saying enough is enough. We've seen so much disunity, we've seen so much arguing and bickering and internal drama, that I think that Gaza has been the one uniting factor. And with that mindset growing, there's a few challenges that obviously come with that. There are people who are saying, listen, I want my ISOC to be united. I want the Muslims on campuses or the Muslim organization to be united. But there's some common themes that maybe we need to work through. So I just want to go through a few things. I think the first thing, something you talked about, was what happens when you disagree? When you're in an organization, and I'm sure you've had much experience with this kind of stuff, where you're in an organization or you're in ISOC or you're just at uni talking with your friends, you're trying to work on something. How do we get past those disagreements in the path of unity?
When my kids were growing up, I would read them bedtime stories. And because I like Islamic history, so I started off with the stories of the prophets, then the seerah, and then the story of the Khulafa Rashidun, and so on and so forth. When I was telling them the story during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr anhu, when pretty much the whole of Arabia erupted in open revolt against the Muslims.
Yeah.
And some of the towns, they said, listen, we're still Muslim, we just don't want to pay zakat. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all we're not going to pay zakat, that's it. Everything else we follow, we accept. And when the news came to Abu Bakr anhu, Umar anhu told Abu Bakr anhu that we should take this deal. Like, we got so many problems, we could do with one less problem. We should take this deal temporarily even. And Abu Bakr anhu said, no, absolutely not. Even if they withhold from me a stirrup of a camel, I will fight them for it. When I told this to my children, they suddenly got out of bed and said, you got that the wrong way around, Dad. It's Abu Bakr anhu told that we should compromise, and Umar anhu said that we should not. I said, I know the story. You guys don't know the story, right? I've got it the right way around. And they started arguing with me. I said, well, why are you guys arguing with me? You don't know the story. And they said, Dad, from the beginning, you've taught us that Abu Bakr anhu is a mild-mannered, calm, always, collegiate person. And Umar anhu, he's very stern, he's strict, he's on, he's 1 + 1 = 2 person. And now suddenly you're telling us that he's got a personality transplant? They've got a personality transplant? That Umar anhu is the one who's accommodating, Abu Bakr anhu is the one who's strict? I was like, Abu Bakr anhu is teaching you guys a lesson. What's the lesson? I said, when you have principles, you should be 100% firm on them. Everything else you should be relaxed. Everything else be flexible. But if you are relaxed on your principles and firm on everything else, then you will be seen as someone who's too strict. You'll be seen as someone who cannot be trusted. You will struggle to unite with anyone. Whereas when you are firm on your principles, and there are a few, right? Mm-hmm. And whether we listen to music or not is not a principle of Islam. Whether you have that opinion or you don't have that opinion, it's not a principle in Islam. Whether X or Y, most things are not. We have principles in Islam, and they are not millions of principles, right? Unless you're going to try and be facetious and make them all. Yeah. So if you are firm on your principles, what you realize, we've got 3, 4, 5, 6 principles, 10 principles, whatever they may be. I'm firm on that. And everything you're relaxed on, it's easy to unite with people. But usually we have it the other way around. We're firm on all the little things, and we're very flaky on our principles. And therefore, not only do people find it hard to unite with us, but people run away from us. They see us as very difficult to work with, very stubborn, etc., etc. So my advice is that if you're going to work together on campus, you need to have some firm principles you're not going to change, right? That you're going to be strict on, agree on that, and then be relaxed on everything else. Because we have a higher purpose. We have a bigger goal than fixating on this. There was a da'i that I knew. He passed away, Allah yarhamu. Thousands of people accepted Islam at his hand. I asked, what's your secret? And he said, just spread Tawheed. I was like, I want something more detailed. He goes, that you don't understand. He goes, when people do da'wah, they start talking about hijab. Can you be a Muslim without hijab? Yes. When people do da'wah, they start talking about Palestine. When they start talking about 100 other things. He goes, you can be someone who believes in all of Islam. If you don't believe in Tawheed, you're not Muslim. Mm-hmm. And if you're someone who believes in Tawheed and everything else, you're still Muslim. That's the secret. Because stop focusing on the areas that people can divide on. Focus on what we can unite on. And when you do that, you'll find people are attracted to you. People run towards you. The human nature is to want unity. When the non-Muslims see Hajj, why do they always turn up on Hajj and they see CNN and everything? Why? It is powerful to see so many people
everyone
together.
Yeah,
very powerful. When I remember I used to do a presentation on Hajj, and non-Muslims, the first question inevitably they'd ask is, why can't I go? I want to go. I was like, it's not a tourism destination. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can go, but you need a spiritual passport, and then you need to become Muslim to go. So it's a long answer to a short question, but
no, absolutely. I like how you brought up principles, because a slight perhaps pushback, because I 100% agree that in terms of we cannot compromise our principles, our core principles, but what people argue is that the differences end up becoming their principles. What I mean is perhaps, and a very famous scholar, may Allah preserve him, he mentions this thing called the narcissism perhaps of trivial differences. Yeah. So we of course we don't want to compromise on the truth, but where's the fine line? Because many people say that we can't work with them because our principles say this, and on a level where it means like, okay, our principles are embedded in the truth and our macro principles as Muslims, absolutely. But then that happens on the smallest of levels as well, where it's like this ISOC doesn't want to work with this ISOC because it doesn't align with our quote unquote principles. And this time I say quote unquote because there's that question, where do we draw the line?
It's difficult. I can't give a prescriptive answer. All I would say to you is it worth disuniting over? Because what you have to put both sides on the table. Look, I speak in stories, right? Some people speak in riddles, I speak in stories. My younger brother's a cardiologist, and he met a young man, was my age, who'd been coming to the doctors every 6 months. Mm-hmm. And when he saw him and he looked at his results, he said, his heart, my brother's heart sank. He looked at me and he said, you have 6 months to live. I don't know if you're going to be coming back anymore. And there's nothing we can do for you. So of course he started crying, his family started crying. But my brother couldn't understand. He said, why? You could have had surgery for this, like a heart transplant, years ago. Why did you say no? And he said, because every time I came to the clinic, the doctors would turn to me and say, would you like a heart transplant? There's a 3% chance you're going to die. What would anyone say? No. Why would I want to take a 3% chance?
To have a risk, yeah.
Because they never put across the alternative. By the way, would you like a heart transplant? There's a 3% chance you're going to die. If you don't get it, in 3 years' time, there's a 100% chance you're going to die. Now would you take it? You don't put the other part on the table. That's a very important part to miss off the table, isn't it? That's what we do all the time. We don't want to unite with them. Why? Because we have differences of opinion. What's the alternative? What is the part that you're missing out? Because when we refuse to unite as Islamic societies, or MSAs across the country, then so many people are not getting the true spirit of Islam. Because when we are united together, we can give them a much better impression of Islam. How many people have lost out on hearing about Islam because when we work together, we could have had a much bigger marketing machine, better media, better outreach. How many people? How many, we could have, if we all worked together, we could have paid for lawyers that could have put our case forward. So those who were being kicked out for a Palestine protest, we could have paid for lawyers. If we all worked together, we could have done this. If we all worked together, we could have done that. How many things have you missed out on? How many lives have been destroyed? How many people have died? I say this very advisably. People die when we disunite. you have to be 100% accurate. Gaza is an example. And it's just one of many, many examples. When we disunite, whoever, and you think that your small disunity isn't part of it, it's all part of it. Everyone carries that blame. All of us have blood on our hands. So when you disunite, it comes at a huge price. Put it on the table. So that when you're looking and saying, we can't unite with them because our principles say X, someone somewhere, and this is what I think we need the revolution in the Muslim youth to say, this is the cost of disunity. Now judge between those two. Is it still valuable? Because when we're disunited, if every single mosque in this country, if every single MSA in this country, if every single Muslim organization in this country was united like this, do you think that the government would listen more keenly to us? 100%. It might not change them, but they would definitely listen a lot harder than they are listening right now to us. It's just one random mosque. It's just one random person. And what I've been told by politicians themselves, they said, you know, even if there's 10,000 of you, I find it very easy to say no. And I find it very difficult to say no to 1,000 of another community. Right?
Wow.
I said, why? He goes, all I have to do, because you never come as 10,000, you always come as individually, one by one. I just have to say no to one person 10,000 times. It's very easy to say that. But when 1,000 of them come together, very difficult to say no to 1,000 people. Very easy to say no to one person 10,000 times. And that's what happens to us.
SubhanAllah, I love you brought that up because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, I believe at the end of Surah Al-Anfal, He actually, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing because of how little we reflect on it. Because Allah says in the Quran that the disbelievers, they unite. And if you do not do the same, there will be what? Fitna and corruption on the land.
Absolutely.
And the idea of showing the alternative is as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us, is this what you want if you don't unite? And then you brought up the example of numbers and the 1,000 versus maybe 10,000. It brings me back to something you mentioned earlier, is that how many times in our history have we seen, when we look at the beginning, we talked about the successes, where the numbers of the Muslims weren't actually the thing that got them the victory, perhaps.
Exactly.
In fact, I wanted to ask you about the Battle of Badr, which you've spoken about quite extensively of Muslims are not in the majority. So I wanted to ask, you mentioned that Badr before wasn't just a battle. It was a blueprint for unity. What made the unity of the Battle of Badr so powerful, and what should young Muslims take away from today?
Well, the blueprint which was there, because remember, not all of Medina turned up, right? You had 313, but they believed. They believed to a degree that means that afterwards you were called a Badri Sahaba, right? Like that's the elite of the Sahaba. You are Badri, right? The only people above the Badri Sahaba were literally the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. So these people are the vanguard. And we need that vanguard in the Muslim community who are going to stand up for what? For unity. Who are going to call for it. Because at the end of the day, look, we know how this game ends. We know we will be united, inshallah. We know that we will be, inshallah, one community and we will be successful. Inshallah, we will go back to our rightful place. But whether it will be us or somebody else that achieves that, who knows? So we need to start that movement for working together, breaking apart these differences that hold us back as a community. And unity, we always think about unity when we think about national, international unity. It starts at home, right? It starts at home. It starts on a micro level. You can think global and act local, and that's probably the best way to do it. But somebody needs to be thinking and somebody needs to be moving. It's that old adage, right? Everyone says one day, but the people who change the world who say day one. This is day one. And those were the people who changed the world. And I want to take you to another battle, Uhud. Because Uhud is a fantastic example of unity as well. We as Muslims believe that the Prophet ﷺ is the mercy to mankind. Mercy to all the world, rahmatan alameen. So of course if he was, which we believe he was, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow someone from the Quraysh to stand up, take a bow and arrow, point it at the Prophet ﷺ and shoot? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have done anything. He could have paralyzed that man, he could have killed him. He could have caused the arrow to be diverted left or right with a gust of wind, a bird could have come, somebody else could have come in the way. He didn't. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let that arrow hit our Prophet ﷺ directly in the face. A headshot. No wonder everyone thought he was dead. If someone takes a headshot which knocks him out cold onto the floor, then you're going to think, I don't know, he's not going to be alive. Nauzubillah. So people think he's gone. And yet, at that moment, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let that happen? For me, the answer is very straightforward. Because He was teaching us a lesson. At that moment, the Ummah became three. One, which is running after the dunya. One, which is doing work, but without any strategy, without any unity. They're just going on. They don't even know what happened. And then the smallest group is the middle group that calls everyone. They formed a circle around the Prophet ﷺ and they called everyone back towards them. They said, rally around the Prophet ﷺ, rally around the Prophet who saved the day. Today, the Ummah is three. It's not the Prophet ﷺ was on the floor, but Islam itself is on the floor. And the Ummah is three. One chasing after the dunya, one who are doing whatever work they are, but there's no unity in what they're doing. So they're constantly working. They're this Sisyphean task of constantly working and working, but it's just not getting anywhere. It's that middle group that will save the day. Those who say, come, let's unite again around the message of the Prophet ﷺ, and then let's get back to where we were. That's what we need.
How do we become that middle group?
You just have to say it. You just have to want to do it, right? You know, when we stand in prayer and they say feet to feet, heart to heart, you have to start thinking about those who are not in the room. If you're ISOC or MSA, then one of the reasons that there is a Somali SOC is because you have not reached out to the Somali community, right? If you're going to have just a bunch of Pakistanis from left to right running the show for the last 20 years, and then say, why is the Somali community here? Why are they from? Don't ask that question. Where are our sisters? What events are you putting on? How are we truly exemplifying the diversity of the community? How are we reaching out? Are we active? People want to go where there's activity, right? Or are we boring? Do we cater for the converted? Which is what we mostly do. Let's do a talk and a circle on taqwa and ihsan. Trust me, it's very noble. You should do it. But there are more Muslims. I've asked this everywhere I've traveled in the world. And mostly I speak to young people. And I ask them. I ask them in Germany. I ask them in Qatar. I ask them in wherever I go, Canada. They say the same thing. There are more Muslims in the nightclub on a Friday night than there are in the Jummah on Friday. From that university. Ask any of them. We've lost, as one of my friends likes to say, we've lost the dressing room. We're not asking why. We're not changing ourselves. Everything and everyone in the world changes to bring in new people, to accommodate new people. And we are still operating in the 1970s, 1950s, 1920s. We need to change. We need to adapt. What's new ways? Things like podcasting. I went to a mosque in Leicester. I went to a few mosques. So I went to one mosque, beautiful mosque, amazing. It was a Gujarati mosque, empty. One row, elderly people, and that's it. And they closed the door after prayer, and everyone left. From there, and they're like the young people, they don't come, they're not interested, etc., etc. And from there, I literally went straight to a Somali mosque, which was packed with young people, running around, screaming, playing. Someone was playing football in the hall. There was a pizza party. It was heaving. And I was like, what's the difference here? And they were like, we don't know. But I could tell. I was like, every one of their trustees was young. They got rid of their manager's office and they made it into a podcasting studio. I said, why do you do a podcasting studio? They're like, a podcasting studio is the football field of today. In the old days, you'd have a football pitch. Now we have a podcasting studio. Yeah. People come and they would say, make your podcast. They're going to be Islamic. They're in the mosque, right? But do it. Do what you want to do. They have a cafe. People love the cafe, and we let the kids do whatever they want. So they see this as their front living room. That's what we tell them. We say, see the mosque as your front living room. You come here, you play, you bring your friends, whatever you want, you're here. That's the difference. So are you the first mosque, beautiful, but close the door and then wonder, where's everyone? Or are you going to be the second mosque, which is actively thinking, How can we open and empower our young people? How can we bring them in? How can we get the diversity in, inshallah?
I'm so glad you brought that because it is something that hurts my brain sometimes when it comes to ISOCs, MSAs and stuff. It's like not only you have to be welcoming, but you also have to not be unwelcoming. And I'll quickly just explain. So a long time ago, a few Ramadans ago, a very good friend of mine, brother, we're doing campus tarawih at university, and it's the 23rd night or one of the odd nights, and we noticed that the masjid on campus isn't as full as it normally is. So the brother, in very good intentions, gets on the mic, and he starts just shouting, "Brothers, sisters, it's the 23rd night of Ramadan, and we're not in the masjid. What a shame on us. What would we say to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam?" Every point he's making, it's like, absolutely, you're right. But then it hits us. You're saying it to the wrong people. You're saying it to the people who chose to attend. That's not the audience. But similarly, what happens is that we go in ISOC circles I've seen, and the way that we deal with the unwelcomingness is we say, where's the Somali community? Where's the Pakistanis at? Where's the Saudis? Why don't we see any Kuwaitis here? Why don't we see any or whoever the nationality is? But I'm like, who's going to them? Who's reaching out to them and being like, hey, you want to come to our event? Oh, let's collaborate. Let's work together. That doesn't happen, but the blame does.
Yeah, and partially I don't blame them because the people running ISOC, mashallah, there's few.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 or 3 people, the NSA, they're working, they're studying like everyone else.
Yeah.
They're putting out the prayer mat, they're writing the khutbah, they're collecting,
Sure.
they're doing everything. So they're working really hard and they're at their limit. But what I would say to them is that do less and inspire more. Don't be a manager, right? A manager is like, here's a checklist, go and do it. Your job as a leader of the Islamic Society or the MSA is to inspire people. And you will find them come towards you. They will run towards you. They will give you their time and their energy. I've seen it time and time and time again. The most busy people will give you their time and energy. And they will give it willingly if you make them believe in something.
Mm-hmm.
So, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, his treasurer came to him and said, look, there's a problem. What's the problem? He goes, too many people are becoming Muslim. Why is that a problem? Because a large portion of the tax revenue of the Muslim, of the Umayyad Empire was from non-Muslims, right? So then if you have too many people converting, then you're not getting that tax
going
revenue.
down. Yeah.
So his revenue is going down. So Umar Abdul Aziz, because he knew what was important, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send his prophet to be a tax collector. Less money is fine. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send you to run the Islamic Society or MSA to make sure this event happens or that event happens. Right?
Core, the essence.
Yeah. Your essence is to be the leader in that area, because wherever we go, we have to have a leader. The leader in your campus of those who are calling towards Islam and calling first the Muslims. Call the Muslims first. The reason why I say call the Muslims first is because this is the best da'wah. We get obsessed with da'wah rose and da'wah this, that, and the other. One of my younger friends, he phoned me once. They were having a charity dodgeball tournament.
Yeah.
And he said something really strange happened. I said, what? He said that when we were leaving the dodgeball pitch, the owner, she said, what a nice religion you guys have. And I said, well, why is that strange? He said that nobody says that, right? Why didn't she just say we were nice people? I said, the reason is, if you guys turned up as individuals, she would have said, you're a nice individual. You're a nice person. But because you came as the Islamic Society, and she saw that there was really nothing that connected all of you, your different ethnicities, different ages, different, everything. But the only thing connecting you was your faith. You said, well, nice religion. The stereotype, right? What's the stereotype we all have of Japanese people? Organized, efficient, clean, Germans.
Good manners.
Yeah, exactly. So even if you met one Japanese person who was not like that, I met the world's only lazy Japanese person. How is this possible? Because your stereotype is that they are good. And if I meet someone who goes against the stereotype, what's our stereotype? Mm-hmm. You only build stereotypes when you're united, right? When you're united, right, the good united people are able to build a stereotype, are able to build a conformity. And when you're disunited, the fringes define you. The 2 or 3 people who try to do something crazy, who act like whatever they want to act like, they are the ones who define us. because what's the phrase? When the moral majority is disunited, the immoral minority will run the show. And they do.
SubhanAllah, one of the perhaps biggest examples, at least for youth, for university going high school students, is at many, many campuses around the world, I believe, mashallah, in 7 to 8 countries now, Charity Week has been a remarkable success story for thousands of Muslims. For some even say it's the one thing that made them believe in unity in the first place. Could you please share with us the powerful story behind the phenomenon that has become Charity Week, and perhaps those who maybe aren't familiar with Charity Week, and why it's so important?
Jazakallah khairan. And I want to preface this by saying that everything that Charity Week is down to people other than myself. They've, I was there at the beginning, but alhamdulillah, amazing people have taken it to where it is nowadays. So I'll tell you a story again. I was at university, and I saw a picture of 2 children, 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, on the side of a road, middle of the night, and the older brother is hugging the younger brother. And the article, the photographer, he said, he was driving through, I forget which city, he was driving through a city and he saw these 2 children. If you see 2 kids on the side of the road like that, he stopped and he asked, he woke up, what's going on? And the older brother said, we're orphans, we have nothing and no one. All we have is each other. So in the night, I hug my younger brother, so at least he gets some warmth. Your heart breaks. And immediately my hand went in my pocket. You know what? I want to donate. And then it stopped, because for the first time in my life, I started thinking. And I thought to myself, if I give them money, it will sort them out for food for today. What about tomorrow? They go hungry tomorrow. Even if I gave a lot of money to make sure that they don't have to worry about food ever again, what about shelter? Let me get my family together and we'll buy them a shelter. But what about education? They're going to have no education. Well, let me get my mosques together and we'll provide them education. What about healthcare? Let me get my Islamic society together and we'll provide them healthcare. And then I stopped and I thought, well, what about the kids who are not in the picture? Down the road, there's probably another few orphan kids. What about the next road? What about the next state? What about the next city? What about the next country? And this is when I realized, I was like, we cannot buy ourselves out of this problem. The problems that we have in the Ummah, we keep trying to reach into our pocket to solve it. It doesn't work. And that's when I realized that at that time there was also, there are issues we have in Muslim community, 45% of the Muslim world is illiterate. 45%.
Wow.
Can't read or write their own name. So where are we going to go as a community? What are we going to do? What can this Ummah do? And 45% of the world is like that. And there are so many other statistics like this. When you think, okay, we've got illiteracy, we've got sectarianism, we've got misogyny, we've got animals. We don't even look after the animals. Some of the countries that have the worst animal rights records are Muslims. We have corruption, we've got this, we've got that, we've got climate change. How many problems do we have in the Muslim world? And you think, what are we going to do? And then you realize these are all symptoms of a disease. What's the disease? The disease is disunity. The disease is we're not united. So that's when a light switch turned on in my head and I said, we need to work towards unity. We need to stop trying to buy somebody a meal, and we need to build an agricultural system that will provide meals for everyone. We need to stop buying somebody a medical pack. We need to build the healthcare infrastructure. So we need to think in terms of, because when you were united, we can do big things and we can help people for the long term, not just the short term. And we don't have to choose. Who should we help? Gaza and Sudan, because Gaza and Sudan are both in front of us right now. And people are dying in both of them. Is a Sudanese child worth less than a child from Gaza? No. But we're all choosing right now, aren't we? Every one of us is choosing which one to donate. Why? Because we're disunited. A united ummah would not have to choose. A united ummah would stop them being in this situation in the first place. So we are a people obsessed with treating symptoms and not curing the cancer. The cancer is disunity. We need to, someone somewhere, I know there's always people who are going to be treating the symptom, but someone somewhere needs to find the cure for this goddamn cancer. Because if they're not, we're going to be 100 years from now, our great-great-grandchildren will still be talking about Gaza. And that has to stop. And if you are watching this and you believe that that is horrible future for us as an ummah, then I'm begging you, please get out there and start the movement for unity. Unite one after another, one group after another, one ISOC after another, one mosque after another, one city after another, until it is an unstoppable wave, inshallah.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite us and unite the Ummah, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A lot of words to reflect on that. And when I was in Charity Week, there was a slogan they used to add at the beginning of those presentations, that it's not about the money raised, it's about the unity. And at first I did think of it as just a slogan. I'm like, that's a bit odd. It's called Charity Week, it's in the name, but you're telling me it's not about charity, it's about unity. So, but then I realized, you go through and you see, oh my God, for the first time in a long time, I'm seeing Muslims from groups that I don't even know the names of. I don't even know they existed. And from this university, that university, this place, this country, and especially those Charity Week dinners. Then you have the international dinners. Then you see, wait a second, all this is being replicated in 8 other countries. It moves you, and it gets you kind of thinking. But then the question I would have for you is, what do you think was special about Charity Week that got Muslims together from all different schools of thoughts in our Islamic tradition, cultures, and views? And how do you think they practically actually work together? Because that's quite remarkable.
We want to be united. Look, in a few days from now, in Vatican City, there will be white smoke going out of the Sistine Chapel, and someone will come to the balcony, and a cardinal will say the words, Habemus Papam. We have a pope, and pope, means father. We have a father. And this ummah has been orphaned for more than 100 years. We have no father. We even forgot what it feels like to have a father. And wallahi, every time I see them, every time a new pope comes and they say, I feel like crying. I wish we had a father. We want it. We want to be united. So when you sell unity, people will come. When you tell people, and when you exemplify it, don't just use it from your words. When you exemplify it, what does exemplifying it mean? Because when in Charity Week, we say that our culture is unity. What does our culture being unity mean? It means that the team that built Charity Week here in London, they could have just grown it in London, but they actually started growing it outside the country, outside of London. Charity Week USA, the first USA team was 5 Londoners from London. Just saying, we just need to start. We know that this is going to grow in America, but we just need to start. And the first director in USA was a Londoner who had traveled across. That's what unity means. It means sacrificing. When people see you sacrifice for others, they will follow. Muslims, it's in our DNA, right? But we've lost it. We've forgotten it. We need someone to uncover it. We need someone to exemplify it. We need someone to show it. And when we do that, people will come to you, and they will come. And when you say, like, how do they all work together? Because there is 2 things. One, it's a unity of purpose, not uniformity of views. In some Islamic societies, they're like, we're only going to do 1 or 2 events. Okay, that's fine. In others, we do 20 events. In some, they're like, we don't think that this kind of event is acceptable. Fine, we're not going to change you. We're not here to change you. But we're not here to change you. We're not here to dictate to you, except we have to work together. This is non-compromisable. We're going to work together whether you like it or not. Even if you hate me, even if you're insulting me, we're working together whether you like it or not. And you win their heart. You win their heart and they win yours. That's how it works. But you cannot compromise on unity. You have to constantly push it forward. You have to always think, when we're doing international annual dinner, for example, and we say we're going to do it in this year, it's in Germany. It's inconvenient for the people in America. We want it in America. Like, you have to sacrifice for the Germans because they sacrifice for you, and vice versa. Keep sacrificing for each other, and we will grow together, inshallah. And that's what you see when you go into the room. That's what you see. We see the beauty of unity. I did a talk on Charity Week, and I walked out, and the brother, he was talking to me. I said, "Where are you from?" He goes, "I'm from Palestine." I said, I pulled out my phone because we have like a survey where you can give the money, and you choose where you want the money to go. I said, "Choose Palestine." He goes, "I promise you I will not choose Palestine." I said, "Why?" Because if I believe in unity, I'm going to put Palestine last. Everyone else is going to put Palestine first. I have to put it last. I put Somalia first. That's what unity means. And when we do that, we will be flying, inshallah.
Dr. Wajid, I quickly want to touch upon the idea of Charity Week, and we see its successes. Do you see this model being exported or used in other realms of our da'wah and our movement as Muslims?
I hope it will be. It was designed to be a template. It's not designed to be a one-off. It's supposed to be copied and adjusted. I'll give you an example. Imagine if all the Islamic societies and MSAs across the world work together to advocate that their colleges and their universities bring on students from Gaza or provide services to rebuild the education system of Gaza. Would we have much more impact than if one of us did it on our own? Of course we would. So whether it's advocacy, whether it's da'wah, whether it's health, whether it's marriage, whatever it might be, there's nothing that if we work together, you could do better than if you work separately. There's really nothing. And I'm hoping that others will step forward and start doing. I know there are a couple of projects along those lines, but we need an expansionist mindset. You know, I often say that unfortunately in the Muslim community, we have a very PFC mentality, and we need a KFC mentality. What do I mean by that? You know, if anywhere you go in the UK, you will find a halal fried chicken shop. You know, PFC and so many other FCs, they call themselves. Questionable quality maybe, and hygiene ratings and so on and so forth. But they're good shops and they're there and they're halal chicken shops. And yet the whole Muslim Ummah hasn't produced one KFC. Kentucky Fried Chicken, which you find all across the world, which is a global behemoth, right? What are we doing? The whole Muslim Ummah from one end of the world to the other we're good at all these, Gulf guys who are showing off their fancy cars. They should be ashamed. You haven't produced one car in your whole life. The whole Ummah, I mean, I think now Turkey has produced a car.
Yeah, the TOGG.
Yeah.
TOG. Yeah.
That's it. The whole Muslim Ummah, we can barely produce one car. Should be ashamed. Because we've got a very narrow mindset, a consumerist mindset, rather than an expansionist, globalist mindset where we say, how can we take our project and make it go viral? So I see this all the time. I'm organizing a football tournament between me and my friends. Not even football tournaments. I'll just have a kick around. I was like, bro, the amount of effort it would take you to do that same kick around with your friends, and you could get other children to take part, it wouldn't be that much. It's a few WhatsApp messages. And then the amount of effort to go from that to having like a small tournament in your town is not that much. And then between those towns and other towns, and then in the country, it's not a huge amount. It's still a WhatsApp group at the end of the day, right? No one's saying that you need to build a multinational company out of this. It's a few WhatsApp groups. It's people with desire and energy who push that forward. We could go from having hundreds of Muslims kicking a football around on their own, which is, there's no infrastructure around it, there's no umpire, there's no da'wah associated with it, there's no money associated, to building a national Muslim football tournament with funding and sponsors and this and that and everything tied into it, and da'wah. We're obsessed with being Bruce Wayne when we could be Batman, right? We need to try and think differently and have that globalist mindset, inshallah.
Yeah, and we need organization in our organizations.
Yeah, Malcolm X said, right? We're not outnumbered, we are out-organized. And we think small, think big. The world is big. The world is waiting for us to give our input, our ideas, our energy. And we're constantly lowballing it.
I want to come to that idea of when we think of Malcolm X, I think of a leader, think of a visionary. And when you think of leaders, the ones you mentioned, the ones who, anyone, you can search up whoever your favorite Muslim leaders are, or leaders in general. One common factor about leaders is that they unite. And if we want to be those people who unite, we need to be leaders. And you once said a profound quote: "No longer must we be powerless victims, but powerful authors of our own stories." Can you talk a bit about what that mindset looks like and on more of a practical level?
So what I mean by that mindset is, up to now, we are in a community that is reacting. Once that happens, we react. Islamophobia happens, we react. The world punches us in the face, we react. We're constantly reacting. But we need to become proactive. What's our vision for the future? We don't have one. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, are the blind equal to those who see? What is he talking about? Physical blindness?
No.
Are the blind equal to those who see? What do people who are blind not have? They do not have a vision. They don't have a vision. What's our vision? As an ummah, as a community, has anyone in the Muslim ummah, from Morocco to Malaysia, from the top of Alaska to the bottom of South Africa, has anyone articulated what is the solution for Gaza? We don't have a solution. So we need a vision as a community. So when you have a vision, when you have a destination, you will get there. You know, the Prophet ﷺ said, be in this world as if you're a traveler. What's the one thing? Because the traditional tafsir of this hadith is that you're temporarily here. Travel light. But I have a different opinion, because you can travel heavy, right? If you see some people, they travel with 100 suitcases. So you can travel heavy as well. But one thing that every traveler has in common, what is it? A destination. Because if you don't have a destination, you're not a traveler, you're a wanderer. You're just twisting in the wind. Does the Muslim Ummah have a destination? Is there a goal? No. This is why here as a Muslim Council of Britain, the first thing I did, literally my first speech, was set forward Vision 2050. For the Muslims in this country, that in 25 years, we want to go from where we are to where we want to be, inshallah. Not just in terms of economy, not just in terms of health, not just in terms of wealth or status, but also in terms of spiritually, where do we want to be? We have a goal, we have a target. Now let's work towards it, inshallah. So if you want to become a powerful author of your own story, you need to not tell the story that others are trying to tell of you, right? You need to stop being constantly in defensive mode and not be in offensive mode, but you should be telling your story. What is it that we want to do? What does an Islamic economy look like? What does Islamic social media look like? We have a fiqh of agriculture, we don't have a fiqh of social media? How does that make sense? Where is that debate? Where is that, how are we going to function? How should society work and in an Islamic context? So be the powerful authors of your own story. Get out there, tell your story, inshallah, because it's an amazing story. The Muslims have an amazing story to tell, and each individual Muslim has an amazing story to tell, inshallah. So get out there, tell your story, be part of this greater mosaic, inshallah, so that we can go back to where we want to be.
As a global ummatic level, as well as an individual, more, ummatic student level, we often, when we talk about unity, in both senses, we run into some real barriers. And it could be the urge to see our organization on top, our group winning, our issues of toxic nationalism, tribalism, or especially racism that sometimes creeps into these spaces. How do we, and especially as youth, practically fight those instincts, but at the same time still chase excellence in our personal goals, while staying committed to the ummatic mindset? That we want to, we recognize all these isms and all these group feelings and the kind of selfishness at times, but identities and all of these things is a mess. And as a student, it's difficult to navigate, but also work on a personal level and for the ummah.
If you were on a football team, everyone wants to be the one who scores the goal, right? But you only have a few strikers. Everyone plays their part, and they're happy to play their part. You don't see a goalkeeper just every once in a while, nobody's looking, I'm going to run to the front, try to score the goal. They don't do it. The defenders, they defend. And the guys in the wings, they run up and down the wings. Everyone does their goal because they see that they're part of a team and they have a vision and they have a goal, literally a goal in front of them to score him. Why? Because they win. And when you win as a team. When you win the World Cup, they don't give the World Cup medal just to the guy who scored the goal. Everyone gets a World Cup medal. Not only on the team, even the substitute bench gets a World Cup medal, even the coaches get a World Cup medal, even the janitor on the team gets a World Cup medal. Because it's a team sport. And we played together and we won together. It's normal. We have turned Islam into an individual sport. We need to see it as a team sport. Nobody wins on their own. You win as a team. And when you realize that, then you realize that you can excel in your area, but we're part of a wider team. And the team's goals are what's important. And this, this analogy, you could take it to multiple levels, because eventually you need some people to be coaches, right? And the coach, no matter what he wants, no matter how good he is as a football player, he could be Zinedine Zidane, but he cannot get onto that pitch because you're a coach. They have to train, but they cannot get on. They can scream and shout. They can train as much as they want in the locker room, but they cannot get onto that pitch. Again, our older generation need to learn that. Because, they're like, it's as ridiculous as seeing a 70-year-old, Zinedine Zidane just trying to still play on the pitch. You're like, what? Dude, it's embarrassing now. It's ridiculous. Get off the pitch. Be a coach. But all our 70, 80-year-olds are still on the pitch. They're still like, I'm not letting anyone younger come on. And the young people on the substitute bench are like, khalas, I'm not interested anymore. Right? I know I've butchered that, but what I'm saying is that it's a team sport. If you see it as a team sport, then you can excel in your area because you are putting the success of the team before your own personal success. And because you do that, you might actually win a World Cup medal. You might actually succeed.
Earlier you mentioned something about the WhatsApp the WhatsApp message. And for some reason it stuck in my brain. And I come back to it and I realized, you first said I thought it was odd because it's like you're organizing something, but it's as simple as starting with a WhatsApp message. It got me thinking, even in the ISOC level, you brought up support, a team. What does a team do? They support one another. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes, one of the ways he describes the believers, and he does so in many, many ways, is believers are the ones who support one another. I think a practical element reflecting on what you just said is when you're in the ISOC, when you're in the MSA, when you're in your masjid, your youth group, whatever organization it might be, support the people who are calling for unity.
Yeah.
And let them know that you're with them. Because sometimes I feel like when you're up there, especially when things are divided and you're saying we should unite, everyone get together, there's this silence. And I think a lot of people, the silent majority of our ummah wants unity. They want to see it, but sometimes we don't speak out. So I think inshallah another way of just benefit, just to add on if I can, is be a vocal supporter when you do so.
100%. That fits in, that's probably a better answer than the one I gave about being the powerful author of your own story. Be vocal about it, right? There's negative self-talk, positive self-talk. Be vocal about unity and explicit about the cost of disunity. And you will get pushback because everyone who benefits from us being disunited is not going to like what you say. Our own community, they're not going to like it. But you have to persevere and it will be the ride of your life. It will be amazing. Honestly, I'm telling you right now, there is no train like the unity train, right? Because everyone wants to get on, and there's a lot of people who are against you, but it's absolutely fun. It's entertaining, and I have to say this because this is a young people's podcast, right? So it is really fun and entertaining. You will have friends who you've never met, I don't understand that mindset where people go and they have like 2 or 3 friends, from uni or from their area, and they kind of go through life. I was like, I don't understand what it's like to do that, because if you're on the unity team, you will have friends in Malaysia that you've never met. You'll have friends in South Africa. You will have friends in Qatar. You have friends everywhere. More than friends, right? What are the Prophet ﷺ's friends? They were called sahabas, companions. Yeah? You're on the same journey together, even closer than friends, right? You're on the same journey together, and they will do anything for you. There was a sister on our Charity Week team. She was getting married, and some of the sisters on the American team were trying to come to her marriage but couldn't make it. So they were crying on the phone, and she was crying. And when she put the phone down, her father was like, I don't understand. You've never met these people. Your own cousins aren't coming to the wedding, and they're not crying. Why are they crying? That's what unity means. It's the unity of hearts and minds.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to reflect on that, and the idea that the ummah is always bigger than we think. The ummah, wherever you go, the ummah will be there, and the ummah will be there for you.
Inshallah.
Dr. Wajid, we wanted to end off the episode by asking a bit of a personal question. With everything you now know and the experiences that you have experienced, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
It's a good question. It's probably more a reflection of who I am rather than anything else. But I would just say work harder, work harder, work faster, because it's just a lot of work to do. Everything that I did that wasn't geared towards building a system, that wasn't geared towards uniting people, I'm not saying it wasn't useful. I've forgotten it. It's gone in the wind. And everything that I built or I worked towards, where I was building a system, where I was building people, where I was, building towards a vision of unity, that's lasted, and that is continuing, and I'm very grateful for that. So what I would tell 18-year-old myself would be double down, triple down, quadruple down on that work, on the work where you build systems, where you build people, where you are working towards that vision of unity, and spend more time spreading that vision to more people, inshallah. That's what I would probably say to us.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, no matter rich or poor, black or white, wherever they may be, wherever they are, everyone and everywhere. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be means of people that unite.
Ameen.
For we are in desperate need of such unity. Dr. Wajid Akhter, Jazakallah khairan. Thank you for coming.
Wayakum.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to The Thinking Youth. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Please remember to subscribe to our social media and YouTube channels and head over to our website thinkingmuslim.com to sign up to my weekly newsletter. Jazakallah khair.